Hello and welcome to NewbiesPR. If you're new here, we explain topics in the public relations career field for beginners. If that sounds helpful for you, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. This video is Media Relations. Throughout this video, I will cite the sources that I use, so if you want to read more, which I recommend, make sure to visit the website or post I am referencing. Now, onto the video. Media relations refers to the relationship and communication between a PR specialist and journalists. Journalists work for a news outlet. They research and write news stories. If a PR specialist feels that a piece of news involving their company or client would be suitable to the journalist's audience, they can pitch that news story to the journalist. The PR specialist would first need to make sure that their client's news story is both newsworthy and that it is something that specific journalist would cover. An important thing to remember is that journalists report the news to their audience objectively, so they won't report a story of yours if it seems salesy, like an advertorial. Sponsored posts on publications exist, but they would be marked as such to not mislead the readers, and they should still relate in some way to the topical category of that outlet. Why pitch to journalists? Well, journalists need stories to cover, and PR people need to keep their clients relevant by staying in the news, so PR specialists and the media have a mutually beneficial dynamic. Journalists can report on what happens in their industry or their local area. The specific topic that a journalist reports on is called their beat. You can get an idea of what their beat is by looking at other articles that they wrote, and seeing what they all have in common. Or sometimes they will list what their beat is if they are part of a media database or newswire, like Cision. What your brand does can sometimes fit into that journalist beats category. In such an instance, the brand's PR team can work to get your company's news picked up by a publication. This is done by sending the journalist a pitch, often done through email. The PR team will give the journalist the key details, images, etc. that the journalist needs to make a story with. Sometimes the PR person will send them this information along with a press release. A press release is made as an announcement of big news for a company. And again, they aren't meant to be salesy. Shopify lists occasions a press release could be made for a business, such as launching a new business, product, or service, holding a large contest or competition, partnering with a charity, community organization, or celebrity, hosting an event, and more. To read more on that, check out Shopify's article, How to Write a Good Press Release. So, a brand would want to get that information out, and a journalist can be an effective way to do that. When to pitch. So, when something press release worthy happens with your brand and you decide exposure from the media is the way to get the word out, then it's time to pitch. Well, almost. There are a few things you need to make sure of first, such as your company's news has a story to it rather than just being basic information. It's very targeted toward that specific journalist you're going to pitch to, and it provides something for the journalists and their audience. First, on having a story to the news you want to report. Your company will be happy, of course, about its news, like the new product launch or an event they're going to host, but that isn't enough for the general public to care. And if it isn't enough for them, then it isn't enough for the journalist to care. Storytelling is the most effective element of communication, so if you can give your news information in a narrative aspect, it'll do a load of good. Nothing long for the story, of course, because being concise is also crucial. But framing the news like a story helps make it compelling. Let's say, for example, your brand hosted an event. Maybe they wanted to show their altruistic values and hosted a donation drive that included guest speakers, food, etc. You'd want to give it plot points as a story would. You could begin with your brand's backstory that gave them the values they had that led to the charity event. You can then talk about what happened at the event, such as how many people came, what the speakers taught everyone, how many donations were made, quotes from people about the event, etc. Then you can end it with the brand's mission for the future, and when to keep a lookout for their next event. All that can give journalists more to work with rather than just saying, there was an event hosted on X day. When you have all those things down, then finally it can be time to pitch. But now more literally, when is it time to pitch? As in the time of day. Here's what Muckrack suggests. You can pause and look at the screen to see the responses from a survey. Read more on this in Muckrack's article, How to Craft a Winning Media Pitch in 2022. Some best pitching practices include relevancy. As mentioned, just as it is key for your brand to stay relevant in the news, it's key for the news you offer a journalist to be relevant to them. So don't pitch something about sports to a pet journalist, for example. And the more targeted you can make it to that specific journalist's niche, the better. Because industries are big and contain a lot. A journalist may cover technology, for example, but what kind? Pitching the launch of a new piece of computer hardware won't be relevant to a journalist that reports on lifestyle mobile apps. Now onto the email subject lines. In Media Pitch Subject Lines by Prowley, they list the best tips to abide by when making the subject lines for your pitch email. They include keeping it short, so 8 to 10 words, be aware of spam filters, so salesy words, excessive use of capital letters or punctuation, and other formatting elements are exactly what trigger spam filters. And in your subject line, mention a connection to what's inside your email, something like story idea or background on X, or some reference to a trend going on the journalist is covering. For more information, read Media Pitch Subject Lines by Prowley. Formatting. The standard for the email body would be the introduction of the brand, the key details of the story, an offer to provide more information if they are interested in continuing with the story, and end politely by thanking them for their time, and then leave your name and contact info at the bottom. And make sure to keep each part of this spaced out so it's a little more visually appealing and doesn't just look like a wall of text. In brevity. Keep it short. Keep it concise. What not to do when pitching. Knowing the best practices is useful for sure, but if you've never pitched before, it can still be easy to make mistakes because you don't know what to avoid. To get an idea, here are a few things to keep in mind. Don't make spelling mistakes, same rule for everything you write. Don't be boring. Don't send attachment files because viruses exist and it makes the journalist take an extra step to open it. Don't be pushy. Following up is good, but wait a couple of days, then send a friendly check-in. Don't leave out key details. Don't offer something you can't deliver on. For example, offering an exclusive interview with your brand CEO is a good idea, but make sure that the CEO is actually on board first. Don't pitch the same news story to many journalists in the same news publication. Don't say that the story or piece you offer is exclusive if you're pitching it to other journalists. Don't send to journalists' personal emails. Don't send the pitch to the wrong email. News outlets will often list on their website where to send a specific email. Pitches may go to the specific journalist's work email or to the publication's email for press. To learn about more things to avoid, you can hear about what journalists themselves have to say. Muckrack every month shares examples of bad PR pitches that journalists have received. I recommend you read through them to see what not to do. Here's an example from This Month in Bad PR Pitches, March 2021. A journalist received an email that was clearly copied and pasted from a template, and it was an outdated template. And you can also find examples of good PR pitches, an article from Prowley titled 7 Media Pitch Examples from PR Expert. You can pause the screen to read that example, or you can visit that article to read more. I recommend you look for examples of good PR pitches to get a better picture of what they look like, as well as see the different kinds of pitches. And obviously, use them for inspiration, but don't copy them. How to maintain relationships with journalists. You're more likely to get a yes to a pitch if you already have an established relationship with that journalist. So, it's important to build and maintain a network with them. You should not view journalists only as a means to get your story out. In the post, The Key to Building Relationships with Journalists by Presley lists ways you can build relationships with them. They include, know the journalist's audience, send them additional story tips outside of just that of your company, introduce them to people in your network, share them articles and applaud them online publicly, so when you show you're genuine and not only self-serving, they'll be more likely to return the favor. List building. Keeping track of the journalists you intend to reach out to and the ones in your network can seem like a lot. That's why list building is a common practice. Media lists contain information such as the journalist's name, outlet, industry, email, city, additional notes about them, the date you reached out, etc. You can keep track of all this information in a spreadsheet that might look like this. But there are also list building tools that exist like Prowley. In their post, How to Build an Effective Media List, they give more information on list building practices and what the Prowley PR tool can help you with. That'll be it for this video. This was a brief overview of media relations. I can go further into topics like list building, pitch writing, or press releases in future videos. Comment below what you'd like to see in future videos, or if you have any tips on journalist relations of your own. This has been NewbiesPR, the start of your PR learning journey.